Hi, it's your friendly neighborhood VTuber Suvi here again with a new tutorial. And not just a tutorial, but also a new software. So today is the official release date of my Twitch integration called SVIFT, basically Suvi's VTuber integration for Twitch. So this integration will work with both VRChat and VSeeFace. And today we are gonna go through on how you can use it with your stream. So today is the release date of the Twitch integration finally. So how does this program work? With VRChat, it works using the OSC protocol and through VMC protocol with VSeeFace. And this will be pretty simple to do if you have ever created any kinds of animations for either VSeeFace SDK or VRChat. Now I will quickly show you some projects on how to set up the things in Unity for your avatar, but we will not touch them in that much of a detail today. So I recommend you check out either my previous tutorials or some other tutorials, especially when it comes to VRChat, on how to create the animations. Anyway, if you are going with VSeeFace, you will need Unity 2019.4.31, and you will also need UniVRM 0.66, and then of course the latest version of VSeeFace SDK. Now with VRChat, you need to get whatever Unity version is required by VRChat SDK, and then you're good to go. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, so the first step is to download the Twitch integration. And to do this, you simply need to go to my website, 𝐒𝐒𝐈𝐀𝐋𝐒, and then scroll down until you find the link to SVIFT, so basically the Twitch integration. And in here, simply download the latest version of the application and then extract it somewhere on your hard drive. So today we will not actually go that much into how to create animations for VSeeFace, but we will quickly go through the necessary steps. So here I have a Unity project opened. I have imported UniVRM 0.66, and I have also imported the latest version of VSeeFace SDK. Now, what we're going to do is we will create a very simple animation that will simply turn an object on and off. Now, of course, you should replace this kind of a thing with something that will be more fun for your viewers. So, we will simply create a cube here. And let's resize it smaller. And now we're going to make a very small animation that will just turn on this cube. So you can, of course, then replace the animation with whatever animation you want to do. Okay, so now we have a cube for our model. Let's turn it off like so. And next, we will enter the play mode, but first we need to create a temporary animator. So somewhere in your project, right-click, create, and then find the animator controller. Click that one, and we're just gonna name it temporary. Like so. And now we click the play mode. And now what we need to do is we need to drag the animator to our model. So simply take the temporary animator and drag it to your model like so. And now your model should be in this kind of like a temporary animation phase. Okay, and now we're going to create the animation. So you will need your animation tab visible. You can get this from Window, Animation, and then Animation. So next thing, select your model like so. And then let's create a new animation. So click on the create button and then save the animation somewhere. Okay, now that you have created the animation file, let's animate it. So click on the record button. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find the cube that we created earlier. We're going to click it on. And then let's move one frame forward and also again, click it on and off. Okay, and now we're going to simply leave the play mode and we have our animation done. So let's select our animation wherever we saved it, and then select the loop time off, like so. Okay, and now we need to link this animation to a blend shape. So let's go to our blend shape index. So when you import your model, you will get this directory that is called your avatar name.blendshapes. Go into that one and then find the file that is simply called blend shape. This is the blend shape index, and it will list all your blend shapes like this. So now we're going to create a new blend shape. So simply create blend shape clip and give it some name after that. Now remember that this name is something you will need to use later on. So I created a blend shape clip called test redeem, like so. And the next thing we do is we need to go to our avatar again. And now we will be adding a new component to our avatar. So click on the add component and search for VSF. And then we need to add the VSF animations component. If you already have this, you do not need to add it again. Like so. Now that we have added it, click the plus icon, and here we will bind a blend shape clip to an animation. So let's select our test redeem that we just created, and then to the animation slot, we need to drag in the new animation we just created, like so. Now what will happen is whenever we trigger on this test redeem blend shape, our animation will play. So just remember that test redeem name, you will need this in the Twitch integration application. And the final step is to export our model. So select your avatar, go to VSF SDK, export avatar bundle, and then save your avatar somewhere. With VRChat, we have to do something quite similar to VSeeFace. So if you are already familiar in how to do VRChat animations, then this will be relatively simple to you. Today, however, we will not really go that much into the animation basics of VRChat, so I recommend you check out other tutorials if you don't really know how to create animations. Anyway, the basics on how to set this system up is that once you have your VRChat avatar in Unity, simply select the avatar, and then you need to add a parameter for your animation. So simply go to your expression parameters. And to your expression parameters, you need to add a parameter that will be also named same as a parameter in an animation layer. So for my avatar, I have created a parameter called bonk. Now, this name will be very important to remember. You will also need this in the Twitch integration, but you will also need to remember the data type you select. For this specific case, I'm using a Boolean value. You could use an integer or float as well. Okay, so the next step is to create the animation. Now I have already created a bonk animation, so look into some other tutorials if you want to learn how to do VRChat animations. But the next step, of course, is to configure the animation layer. So in my case, it's all set in the FX animator. So in my animator, I have set this up so that my bonk has its own layer like this. It has been set to override. There is now also a parameter called bonk. When you do this, remember it also needs to be the same data type as the parameter you added in the parameters list. Okay, so in the bonk layer, I then have the default state which sets no animation, and then I have the animation state which calls the bonk animation that I have created. And then in these transitions, I simply check if the bonk parameter is on, then we play the animation, and if the bonk parameter is off, then we return to the default state. By setting the animation this way, we will be able to call the bonk parameter on to play our animation, and then after a while we'll simply set it back to false, and then the animation will stop. And now after you have set this, of course, do upload your avatar changes to VRChat. And the next step is to actually configure the Twitch integration. Okay, so when you start the Twitch integration, you will first see this kind of a dialog, which is the settings panel. In here, you will first need to generate an access token and a client ID for your application. Now, if you're watching this video much later, this part may have changed. I may have changed it with an easier system. But for now, we are temporarily using twitchtokengenerator.com to create a client ID and access token for ourselves. So to do this, simply click the Generate Settings. This will open up your browser and take you to the twitchtokengenerator.com. Okay, so when you arrive to the Twitch token generator, the program has already filled all the rights that you need to set it up. So simply scroll down all the way until you find the Generate Token button and click that. Now this will then ask you to log in with Twitch, and then when you authorize it, it will then take you back, where you need to then also select that you are not a robot. And after you're done with that, you will now have three codes here. You will have the access token and you will have the client ID. Simply copy the client ID by clicking the copy button, open up the integrator app, paste it to the client ID field, and then do the same for the access token, copy it, and paste it here. Now do note that you do not need to do this every time you start this program, but if for some reason at some point you can no longer connect to Twitch, then your issue is probably that your access token has gotten old, in which case you will need to redo this process. The next step is to configure the protocols. So depending on what you're using this Twitch integration with, you need to fill in data here. The first group is for the VRChat. So for this, you will need to enter your local IP. So I have entered the localhost IP here. And for VRChat, the port is 9000 at the moment. So simply fill in 9000 there. Now, if you do not use VRChat, you don't need to fill these details. Next is for the VMC protocol. This is for VSeeFace. So again, enter your IP and then enter a port for the VMC protocol. Now I have entered 99999. You could also enter something else if you want. Just remember the port, you need to enter this in VSeeFace as well. And again, if you don't use VSeeFace, you don't need to enter these details. Okay, so the next step, you could either go customize the alerts already, or you could click connect. If you click connect now, it will then connect to Twitch, and it will also connect or start sending packets to these specific addresses and ports. So we will be testing this with VSeeFace. Okay, so now that we have VSeeFace open, we need to set the settings right. So go to the settings, general settings, scroll down all the way until you find the VMC settings, click on the VMC and enter a port. So this will be the same port you entered in the Twitch integration. So in this case, it's a 9999. Okay, so next step, we will be testing this out. Now remember also that if you're using tracking in VSeeFace, you will also need to apply VSeeFace tracking. Right now I do not use a web camera, so I do not have that on. So next step for us is to customize the actual redeems or alerts. Now at the start launch of this application, it only supported bits, channel points, commands and raids, but later on the plan is to support, of course, everything else as well. So let's test this out with channel points redeem. So we go to the channel points tab, and now we already have a bonk redeem here, but let's create a new one for our test redeem that we created for VSeeFace. So click on the add. This will create a new redeem like so. Then we will need to give it a name. Now this is a case-sensitive name for the channel point redeem. So let's just give it some kind of name. I'm gonna name it something that I already have in my own setup. So I'm gonna call it 𝐒𝐻. You could call this test redeem or whatever you want. The next step for us is to select the action queue. Now, action queue is a relatively new feature that I added to this program. It allows you to set a specific queue for this redeem. In most cases, you can set it to be its own queue. Each redeem can have its own queue, which means that every time this redeem gets executed, it will just add it to its own queue, like it will do one execution and then it will do the next of it and so on. But if you use the same blend shape or same parameter in multiple redeems, or let's say you want to use a bonk as opposed like a bit redeem or a channel point redeem, then you may want to set them to be in a global queue. The program by default offers 3 default queues or global queues. So in this case, if we were to set this to be in global 1, and then we did the same as a bit redeem and set it to be as a global 1 queue, then they would also execute in the same queue. Now this is probably very confusing. Do experiment around it and see if you can get something working. Now the next step is to set the action steps. So we need to click here, the add button next to the action steps. This will create a new action. By default, it fills in the structure you need for VRChat. So now it's actually calling a parameter called avatar parameters name. So since we created a bonk animation for VRChat, we could just name this bonk, like so. So this is the way you call the VRChat parameters. And then the data type you need to set to the data type we had in VRChat. So it was a Boolean value. And then to the value we set true, like so. So now it will be turned on. Now to the blend shape name, since our blend shape was called test redeem in VSeeFace, we will call it test redeem. Do note that if you do not use VRChat, you can just give a random name to the OSC address field. Now, if you do not use VSeeFace, you do not need to fill in the VMC details. Now, since we are using VSeeFace, to the value of the blend shape, we need to enter 1. This is very important. If it's anything less than 1, it will not start the animation. So the value is either 0 or 1. So we set it to 1. And then we need to set a wait time. So this is how long you want this specific action to be on before it disables or executes the next action. So we're going to set this on for 5 seconds. So enter 5000. These are milliseconds. And next, we need to add another action that will then turn this same thing off. So let's click add again. And we basically fill in the same details. So we set the bonk. And then we set the data type to bool. And this time the value needs to be false. And same here, we enter the test redeem into the blend shape name. And this time value is 0. And then we will wait half a second. So let's add 500 here. Now, we can also test this out. And to test this out, we need to first connect. So click on the connect button. This will connect this to both Twitch as well as VSeeFace. And now, after we have connected, we will also have the access to the test redeem button. So we can simply click the test redeem and see if it works. So click on that one. And as you can see, the box is on. And after 5 seconds, it should turn off. And it turned off. Now, since we have connected this, we can also test this by using the redeem in our Twitch. So I'm quickly going to execute a channel point redeem called 𝐒𝐻 on my own channel. And as you can see, now that it executed, the box showed up again. And then it disappeared. Now you can do this with all the other ones as well. You can create commands. With commands, something to note is that you can also specify which user is allowed to execute the command. This will allow you to use this Twitch integration even if you're not affiliated in Twitch in a way that you could use, for example, stream elements, channel point system, so that you create a bonk command. And when you do this, then your stream elements will actually repeat the bonk command in the channel. And then this Twitch integration will be listening to the bonk command, but only accepting it from the stream elements bot. And then it will execute the bonk command. But you can also create a command that is accepted from everybody by simply making this field empty. So simply enter the user's name here who is allowed to type the command. And then it will work. Same thing goes for bits. With the bits, you can specify the minimum amount of bits and max amount of bits. So you could do like specific bit redeems, like say 100 bits plays a specific thing, or 600 bits plays something, or you could specify a huge range and just have a simple bit alert show up based on that. Like in this case, whenever someone drops anywhere from 1 to 100,000 bits, it will bonk my character. And as you can see, for this specific redeem, I have set it to global queue, as I mentioned earlier, because currently I use bonk for all the redeems. So all my redeems are set to global 1 queue. Now finally, we have the raids. Raids window looks a bit different. Here we do not specify actual commands or redeems, we simply set the action steps. So when a raid happens, you can again add the action steps that are done. In my case, it's again the bonk, but you could make it anything you want. And this pretty much covers the current features I have in the application. Since this is the very first version of the application, there will be new releases pretty quickly. So do stay tuned to the application, and especially my Twitter and Discord channels. Whenever there's a new update, I will be updating those as well. I hope you liked the tutorial. And remember that even though we did a very, very simplified kind of redeem today, you can do whatever comes to your mind as long as it's supported by the application that receives the integration data. So in VSeeFace, we may be limited by what we can do. In VRChat, we can do a lot of things with animations and so on. So only your imagination is the limit. Anyway, if you like the content, consider subscribing down below, as well as smashing the bell button to stay up to date with my latest tutorials. I do also stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays on Twitch if you want to check my channel out, where I use a bit different kind of redeem system. And I do also stream VRChat pretty often, so you can there at least find me using this specific integration application. I do also have a comfy little Discord. If you run into any questions regarding my tutorials, do join that. And there are a lot of people there who can help you with your issues. So, see you next time, guys. Bye bye!